Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast, is sponsored by the UPS Store Canada.
Hi, Ted.
How do you do?
I'm just fine and dandy, thanks. We're back with another episode, and I'm very excited. Well, I'm excited about all the episodes, but this one's special because we normally don't have somebody so accomplished agree to come and sit in the studio with us two knuckleheads.
No, and quite frankly, we've had so many accomplished people on this season that my feelings of inadequacy just get more and more pronounced every day.
Fantastic. So this will be good then.
Yeah.
Brimming with confidence.
No, you know what? It's going to be good for my humility.
Okay, good. I'm Terry DeMonte. That's Ted Bird. And this is the Standing By podcast brought to you by our title sponsor. I remembered the word this episode.
Nicely done.
The UPS Store Canada. Over 380 locations, we think. We had lunch with David Drucker this week, and I said, how many stores, David? And he said, I think it's 380, something. And that's because they keep opening them all across the country. No matter where you're listening to this podcast, you'll find a UPS store nearby with an entrepreneur who's running that franchise who can help you with your business. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business from home and you're looking for packing, courier services, packing materials, you'd like to set up another address and get a mailbox, a place to receive packages. If you have documents to shred because things haven't gone well, they can help you with all of that. They even can help you send a fax. I know it's counterintuitive in 2023 to talk about sending a fax, but they can help you with it all. The upsstore.ca is where you'll find a location near you. And like I said, and you don't even have to be running a business. You can send Christmas presents.
Yeah, there's lots of personal things you can take care of at the UPS store. Speaking of faxes, that's in my Twitter, or X as it's now known, bio. Old school media guy in a new media world. Fax me.
Our guest today is, one of the most accomplished men that we know. He is a proud Montrealer. His list of accomplishments are too long to list, so we'll ask him about it as we introduce him. Please welcome to the podcast, Mitch Garber. Hello, Mitch.
Hey, thanks, guys. This is a pleasure for me.
Thank you for doing this.
We were once a guest on your show, so we thought we must return the favor and have Mitch on our show.
Well, that was 93, so thank you for the 27-year delay. But
nice to return the favor 23 years later. Where do you start, Mitch? I mean, lawyer is where it all began, right? You started out as legal counsel, right?
Yeah, I think Montrealer is where it all began. I went to Vanier CEGEP after high school, and then I went to McGill. I got an undergraduate degree. My dad dropped out of school in the 8th grade to take care of his family, and so for my dad, the most important thing was that my sister and I got educated. That's all he cared about. And my sister went on to get an MBA, and I went on to the University of Ottawa to get a law degree, actually to follow in the footsteps of my godfather, Cookie Lazarus, who you both know well.
Yes.
And so my path to becoming a lawyer was kind of painted for me by my parents and Cookie. Whether I wanted to actually be a lawyer or not, I am grateful because I think it was a stepping stone to everything I've done, and including radio, including the ability to articulate, the ability to debate, to discuss, to agree and disagree. Law school, to speak French. I went to law school in French. So it's probably been the most additive single thing that I've done in my professional life.
Did you enjoy the law?
I enjoyed, I think it's interesting. It depends. The law is, it covers a lot of different areas, right? So did I enjoy criminal law, tax law, constitutional law, family law? I did, and there's a bunch of stuff that I didn't really enjoy. But it's 3 years of study, and it really does help the way you think. All of us do things that are attached to the law. You've signed leases, you've rented cars, you've taken out a mortgage, you've negotiated a contract, you've had a contract broken, you've sued people, been sued. So it's hard to avoid the knowledge base, and so I've used it to my advantage.
I wonder how you begin transferring away from being a lawyer and heading towards the world of business? Because I know you were at a firm and then something drew you away from that firm. What was that, and how did you make that decision?
People say that I'm an entrepreneur, but I don't accept it, because when I look at entrepreneurs, I see people who, out of their garage, they've developed something where they've put all their life savings and then borrowed from their parents and their uncle and their aunt, and they've developed something, or they haven't, and they failed at it. And that's also entrepreneurship. I had my law degree. I was working in a law firm. I married my wife, Anne-Marie, in 1991, and she was making a lawyer's salary. And so I was able to make a decision to leave the law practice and join a company that I had helped start while I was a lawyer, taking financial risk, but really not taking the type of risk that's associated with entrepreneurship, where I'm rolling the dice and putting all the chips in the middle of the table. I have a wife who's earning a really good salary. I've put away a few dollars from my practice of law. And so the decision was not that difficult, because I really did and do love business. I like being around a lot of people. In law, you're kind of sitting in your office by yourself. Mm-hmm. You're doing a lot of research.
Sorry, Mitch, yeah. What branch of law, what discipline of law were you practicing?
Whatever Cookie sent me to court to do. Actually a bit of a nightmare, because, I would represent someone who got a ticket for passing a flashing light school bus, and the next day I'm doing a motion for custody in a matrimonial dispute, and the next day I'm in some type of contractual dispute. So I guess in the end that's a good thing, but to not be focused on one thing, I wouldn't want me as a lawyer, knowing that the day before I was doing a school bus ticket, and now your kid's custody is in my hands. So it's 30 years later, so I could laugh about it, but it wasn't that funny.
Sorry, I took you away from the story. So you've moved out of the law and towards business.
Yeah, I moved towards business, and I really enjoyed business and business people. When I was young, I delivered the Montreal Star when I was 11 years old. I had the concession for a canteen, which I owned, and I owned the equipment for when I was 14. My mom opened a bank account for me. I would order all the food in the summer. I went through all kinds of business experiences that seem like nothing, but when you have a power failure and you have $400 worth of ice cream in your freezer and your net worth is $300 and all your ice cream melts, and you're crying to your mom that you need to borrow another $400, that's the real world, but you're only 14. So I did get a lot of business experience young, and I really enjoyed that business experience. And plus, when I was 15, I was making $3,000 a summer owning this canteen. And my friends were at
Hampstead
summer camp.
Pool?
Yeah, Hampstead Pool.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That was a shot in the dark on my
true.
part.
That's Hampstead Pool.
Really? That's where your canteen was?
That's where my canteen was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my friends were at summer camp, and I got $3,000. Next summer, $3,000, $3,000, $3,000. All of a sudden, I have $12,000. And I buy a car. I go to Europe. Backpacking. Like I was able to do things. They were able to do it too, because their parents were rich and mine weren't. But I was doing it with my $12,000. Yeah. So it felt a lot more real.
Was it a combination of the business plus the business and the internet that led you to your first business venture?
Yeah, the internet was a gift for me, because there were more old lawyers than young lawyers.
Right.
And the old lawyers, in 1996, 97, they knew nothing about the internet. I have a CompuServe account. My friend Joel Leonoff founded TotalNet, which at the time you needed an internet service provider and someone to come to your house and put 8 floppy disks in your computer so that you could then access the internet. And so I was enamored with what he and Rory Olson were doing. They sold TotalNet. And then we started together because I had a client that needed to be able to accept credit cards over the internet. And I thought Joel could do it. So I asked him. So he said he could do it. I later realized that what he was doing was taking the credit card number and just calling Visa and then getting the authorization. So he wasn't actually using the internet, but the internet merchant thought, hey, this is amazing. I've got transaction processing, credit card processing on the internet, but actually TotalNet was just calling Visa the way you would at a store and getting authorizations until they developed the ability to do it. And once they did develop that ability, I left the law practice and we built a very big business.
And then that business gets sold?
Yeah, we sold that business to Bell Canada, and then Bell didn't want it anymore. So we spun it out into our own public company, and we made a real success out of it.
And then from that, you go on to another business, do you not?
Yeah, from that, I ended up getting recruited. At the time, it was a $10 billion company. I turned it into a $2 billion company. I'll tell you how I did that.
Okay.
So yeah, there was a company called Party Gaming, which was the leader in online poker based in the UK. And Deutsche Bank and Heidrick & Struggles, which is a hiring firm, and Deutsche Bank, obviously a big bank, they were looking for a new CEO. They had a CEO. The CEO took the company public, and they didn't feel he was the right CEO for the future of the business. And they recruited me. It took about 10 months of interviews, and I took the job to become the CEO of this $10 billion company, which was a great move by me. But about 4 or 5 months in, the United States passed the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act.
Wow.
And as a CEO of a public company, I decided to turn off all the U.S. business. My competitors, who were not public, kept the U.S. business and took all of our U.S. business. So 10 billion became 2 billion, but I learned a lot, and I helped build the company back. Not quite to 10 billion, but we helped build the company back, and we had some success there. And I wanted to ultimately come back to Canada and come back to Montreal. And I got another offer, which was tremendous.
Were you in the UK at that point?
I was in the UK.
Did you not live in Gibraltar
I lived in Gibraltar. I lived in Spain. I lived in London. I lived in Tel Aviv. We moved around quite a bit. Voluntarily, I would say. It was enjoyable. My kids went to a school in Spain and then a school in Israel, so they've had that experience. Now they're 28 and 23. I hope they today value that experience. At the time, I don't think they loved it, leaving their friends behind in Montreal, but I think over time, you can look back and say, hey, this is part of the fabric of who I've become.
I have a friend who went from Montreal to South Africa to Belgium and then back to Montreal again with young daughters, teenage daughters, and they liked it. And he and his wife thought the experience was terrific for them.
Yeah, no, I think it was too. So anyway, I meet the owners of Caesars. They own 52 casinos all around the United States and elsewhere. And they asked me if I'm interested in building with them a subsidiary based on the World Series of Poker, based on my experience online. And ultimately, I went there and I did that. And we really had to pivot because poker still didn't become legal in the United States. So we ended up buying an Israeli company that was doing social mobile games like Zynga. And the reason why I went to Israel was because I went to Zynga first to see if they would partner with us, and they basically threw us out of their office and laughed at us like, what do we need you for? And we ended up building a company much bigger than Zynga. I don't know if you could swear on this podcast.
Of course you can.
Yeah, so fuck them. So we ended up building a very big social mobile games company, not a gambling company. I ended up also having 6 casino physical ones in Las Vegas under my... I was the CEO and chairman of a subsidiary that owned 6 of those casinos. And we sold the business for way more than we paid for it. We paid $100 million, sold it for $4.4 billion. And the rest is kind of history.
When the gambling thing, that was I remember this because I had friends in the business. And when that American law passed, a lot of people panicked, but a lot of people moved offshore. Have I got that right?
You do. And so, as I don't want to make it seem, and I'm not better or have a higher moral high ground or better values than the people who didn't do what I did. I was a public company CEO with a law degree, backed by very, very respected lawyers and bankers. And I listened to their advice and I listened to myself. And what was best for a public company and its shareholders was to do what I did. If you're a private company and you own all the shares of the company and you're not answerable to shareholders, bankers, and others, you can make different decisions. And so I made the decision, I and the board and my fellow executives, we made a decision that we felt very comfortable with. And others who moved offshore, they made a decision that they're comfortable with. And many of them are really, really good people. They made, most of them, a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
because there was a serious chance that a lot of people could have spent a long time in jail, right?
I would say that the people you're talking about did not travel to the United States for at least a decade.
Yeah, gotcha.
Probably not.
Yeah, which is smart.
Which is something that even if I was a private company, I would not take that. That's not what I want in my life. I'm not prepared to have that type of exposure or risk. I'm not, it's not my fiber.
Is there a point, Mitch, where on this journey I'm curious about this, and I'm not, don't mean to be personal, but is there a point on this journey where you get to a certain part of the journey where you wake up and you go, shit, I have a lot of money now? Or does that you know what I mean? I'm not being flip. Does it gradually happen over time?
It didn't really gradually happen. I mean, for me, it's not that I mind talking about money. It's that
I'm not talking about figures.
But
right, I'm talking about
figures are important.
But I'm talking about the human experience, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time I signed a $100,000 deal, and I remember what I went through. You know, it's like peanuts, but you know, at the time, you know, I came from a background where you know my parents didn't have a lot of money, and I thought, you know, the first thing I did was call my dad and say, you know, I signed this 6-figure deal. So there's a mental thing that goes through. And I would imagine when you make the kind of deals that you were making, that there must be a moment where you're shaving in the morning and you look in the mirror and you go, fuck, geez. It's
there's a moment
my
where
life has changed.
Well, there's a moment where you look in the mirror and you know for a fact that you will never have financial insecurity. That moment is the turning point moment in my life. Then you have the moments where other people are always talking about your money and
that's
being a somewhat public person. And you know, part of my life became public because I did public, sexy, cool-looking things.
Yes.
And part of it is my own doing. Ted and I are users of X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah.
And we have made the decision that we're prepared to be out there, to be opinionated, to take positions, to take what comes back from taking those positions. And so in my case, if I take a position, sometimes people who I don't respect, because most of the time they're anonymous, they will refer to the money like, what do you know? You know, what does a rich guy know about X, Y, Z? Sometimes they use the religion. Sometimes they use the language.
Yeah.
You know, I got a lot going against me. I always considered being a rich Jewish Anglo not to be such a bad thing, but apparently on Twitter...
Sounds good to me. How much have you had to, or to what extent have you had to guard against or be conscious of remaining grounded and humble given the level of success that you have? Because when you came into the studio this morning, it was still Mitch Garber to me.
Yeah,
You do not
absolutely.
carry yourself any...
Yeah.
I've never been, we're not close friends or anything, but I've known you casually over the years, and you don't carry yourself any differently than you ever did to me.
I don't know, first of all, we live in a society that overly values money as the sign of success. It overly values it. I've been a beneficiary of that overvaluation, okay? People listen to my opinion about things I know nothing about as if I know because I made money, right? Mitch, how do you think the war in Ukraine's gonna end? I'm like, what? How the fuck do I know? You think because I have money in the bank that I and they listen like, well, let's see what Mitch thinks. I'm like, well, I'm not a historian on Eastern European conflict.
Yeah, but I don't think it's strictly about money, Mitch. I also think, there's a respect that comes with being a successful man. And when you're a successful man, people think, well, this man is successful. He's made some really good decisions.
Yeah, you're a smart guy.
Yeah, you're a smart guy. Exactly.
Well, I spend a third of my time at least on philanthropy, and I really don't. I know this is going to sound self-promotional, but I don't think it's because I'm a good person. I don't. I think it's because I understood and understand the moral obligation of the unequal distribution of wealth and the unfairness of the distribution of wealth globally and locally. And I got lucky, and maybe I had some smarts, but there's a lot of luck involved just being born in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a lot of luck involved in it. And so I am aware, my wife is aware, I hope my kids are aware, that I owe it back. Okay? So the society in Quebec and Montreal, they allowed me to make this money. We need to take care of those who are the most in need, give them dignity, and they allow you to drive around in a nice car. They allow you to live in the neighborhood that's above their neighborhood, and they allow you to have a life expectancy that's 11 years longer than the life expectancy 3 kilometers from my house. So I feel like I made the money and I have a profile. I'm going to use both of them because I really think that it's an obligation. Mother Teresa was probably a really good person.
I want to talk. We're going to stop to sing the praises of our pal Sugar Sammy.
Yes.
But I want to talk about philanthropy is somewhere I wanted to go, and also politics, and also your choice to stay and live in Montreal. But we don't need to. We want to. Sugar Sammy called us and said, "Can I sponsor the podcast?"
Speaking of Montreal success stories.
No kidding. We're just talking about how forward-thinking, how clever, how bold it was to do a bilingual show. You've seen it, Mitch?
Many times, and we're very good friends, and we speak. Well, we text frequently, so yeah.
A bilingual show that he's taken across Canada now.
Yeah.
He's doing the bilingual show in Winnipeg, in Edmonton, in Calgary, in Vancouver.
I'm going to see him this weekend in Vancouver. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Allure.
Yeah. But he's attracting those pockets of francophones who live in other provinces.
And how would you describe it? I words fail me when I try to tell people what kind of show it is. It's bold. It's hilarious. It's a social commentary, but it's not a lesson. It's just a really, really funny comedy show.
It's a demonstration. He's a one-man microcosm of Quebec society, or in particular Montreal culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Ted, when we were sitting before we got on the podcast, we were talking about Sugar Sammy. I don't want to make the comparison with Robin Williams, but Sugar Sammy has an ability that very few comedians have. So we'll leave aside the French and English. He adapts. He goes along. He sees the crowd. He asks people questions. He doesn't know what the answers are going to be, and he is funny all the time, whether he's in Atlanta or in Montreal or in Vancouver.
Yeah.
He has a skill that very few people have. He's self-deprecating. That's also an important
and he's
skill.
good and he's kind, and I think that comes across on stage. I saw him in San Francisco. Same reaction there that was when we saw him at UQAM.
Yeah, he's got a combination on stage of likability and comfortability, if that's a word. That's gold.
And
it's just gold for a
if
comic.
you want to get tickets, you have to act now.
Or yesterday.
Yeah. All of the tickets for this year are sold out. So he's added new shows in 2024. He put those on sale. January sold out right away. So January 2024 is gone. There are tickets for February 2024. I don't know what he's going to do in March. If you're listening to this before Christmas 2023, it would make a good Christmas present. SugarSammy.com is where you can get all the information. It's a show not to be missed. If you haven't seen it, you're missing something that truly, really is groundbreaking.
It's a great date show.
It is a great date show.
That
You're
is
right
like
about
the
that,
best
Mitch.
date.
Yes,
Although
it
your
is.
date might want to leave with Sammy if you're not careful.
Mitch, we're talking to Mitch Garber. Mitch, I've always been curious about, you've lived in a lot of places, so maybe it's been there, done that. But not only have you chosen to live in Montreal, you've chosen to dive in the pool. And diving in the pool as a publicly known Anglophone comes with all kinds of grief that I follow you and love reading the tweets and the engagement you have with the Journal de Montréal and Le Devoir and, every nationalist of every stripe. And I think to myself, good for you, but you really could live anywhere in the world if you wanted. Why did you choose Montreal, and why do you choose to fight?
Two good questions. So, look, Montreal, I chose Montreal and it chose me. My great-grandmother came here in 1906 from escaping Russia through England, landed in Montreal, 16 years old, born in 1890. And so the Garber family got very lucky that Grandma Garber, who lived to 99, so I knew her well, landed in Montreal. My family's here. the restaurants I know are here. The streets that I know how to maneuver my way through. You told me to come to Chabanel. Of course I know Chabanel. This is the most Jewish building in the entire city of Montreal.
I'm sure this
99 Chabanel and 111 Chabanel.
I'm sure this whole building was a Schmutta building.
It is,
sure.
still is, except for your podcast.
Yeah.
So I love Montreal. You remember those license plates, Montreal, a city with a heart?
Yeah.
So I love Montreal. I don't call myself an Anglo. They call you Anglo, okay?
Good point.
I didn't choose to be called an Anglo. What I did choose to do is to tweet in French.
Yeah.
That I chose to do because I can. And because it's a message every time. Hey, you can shit on me all you want.
Yeah.
I'm tweeting in French. I speak French. My wife is French. I went to law school in French. My kids have studied in French.
Yeah.
Okay? You can call me Anglo. You can do whatever you want. But I can go toe-to-toe with you. And I can go on Tout le monde en parle. And I can be on the Dragon. And I can be on RDS. And I have done all those things. And I will continue to do all those things. And I will make my opinion known in French. And it makes people crazy, right? And if I did what I do in English, it wouldn't have the impact for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's enough Anglo opinions about Anglo-Quebec that I have nothing to add that will be additive or helpful. And number two, there are too few Anglos that speak French as well as I do.
Yes.
And can write in French and have 50,000 Twitter followers, which is not a lot, but it's a lot here.
Yeah.
So I've chosen to dive into the pool. Sometimes I regret it because the reason I regret it, and I don't know, Ted, I'd love to have your opinion because I've wanted to ask you this offline as well. You know, sometimes I either get sucked into a thread or argument that I regret allowing myself to get sucked into. And I really wish that I hadn't made that third tweet or second tweet or answered that person. And to my detriment, I continue to do it. So, it's like cigarette smoking. No,
I know exactly what you mean, and I think because I do the same thing all the time, and it's what I don't do is okay, wait, don't hit send yet, wait,
and you have to be careful because you work for a company.
Yeah, I work for a company that has fired a couple of shots across my bow because people have complained about something I've said on social media. So I'm on probation. But it's it's that old story of, and I can't practice this to save my life because wait, write the letter and write the letter or write the tweet. And get it out of your... And I have become better at this. Yeah. I get it out of my system, I write it out, and then I delete it. I'm able to do that more now. Not every time, but I'm able to do it more than I used to be. Because I used to be just shoot from the hip, and it got me into trouble.
I'm really, really anxious to talk to you about this because I have a massive chip on my shoulder about this. And I don't like the fact that I have a chip on my shoulder. I'm 65. I should calm down and know better. But
65 and open heart surgery.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a born and raised Quebecer. My grandparents, both sides of my mother's side, my father's side, came here, and we helped build the province. We made contributions to the province. I was never more proud of where I came from, and I think I tried as best as I could to use my public platform that I had over the years to become part of the fabric of the city and, do whatever I could whenever I could. I always, I rarely said no to any charity events. I'm not looking for a pat on the back, but my point is it never was enough. I would say, je suis Québécois, and there was always people that would say, je pense pas, monsieur. No. Vous êtes anglophone. You're not a Quebecer. And it helped chase me out of here. And I'm married to a Francophone who grew up in St. Agathe. And I admire your pluck and your courage to get in, and you're better equipped than I am. But do you ever feel unwelcome? Like when you go on Tout le monde en parle, do you feel like you're going into the lion's cage? Do you feel like les autres?
No, I think the opposite.
Really?
I think I'm massively respected for doing it in French.
Yes.
Even if I make a bunch of mistakes. And I'm hoping Ted's going to agree with me that Twitter and the Journal de Montréal are not the real Quebec world.
My God.
And we get sucked into believing that it is, and it isn't. Because I've traveled the province. Honestly, the people are great. They like me, and when I say me, us, okay? They may not have listened to Chaume in the Beauce. I don't know. They may or may not know who you are. But if you show up there and you say a few words of French, they will love you. So I've gotten sucked in. I'm using that term a lot, but I've gotten sucked into that Twitter or Quebec Twitter and the Journal de Montréal and the Sophie Desrochers and Richard Martineaus, who are paid hundreds of thousands just to create discord. I'm not paying any money. If I create discord, it's just because that's my opinion. I have nothing to gain from it. So I'm trying to be conscious of the fact that certain people are being paid to create if they didn't create the discord, well, they wouldn't have a job. Yeah. So I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'm not interviewing you, Ted, but
please do.
But seriously,
nobody ever wants to know what I pay.
No, but Twitter and the Journal de Montréal are not the real world.
No, social media is not the real world.
Well, let's talk about Louise. Downstairs, Louise.
Yeah, La Belle Louise.
That's, to me, that's the real Quebec.
The parking lot attendant downstairs. Yes. She's so lovely. And I think she knows that my French is c'est une catastrophe, une vraie catastrophe.
But you know, she's a francophone. She doesn't speak a lot of English. And us two knucklehead Anglophones, we make the
we can't get into the parking garage. Terry was lined up behind me at the parking garage today. We're two different cars, and I'm talking to Louise, and at one point Terry lays on the horn behind me like, get going. Yeah, I know it was a joke. Because she's so engaging.
But to me, she's representative of what you're talking about. Sammy has told me he's taken that show into the far-flung regions of Quebec, and they love him.
Yes.
They absolutely adore him, and they're welcoming and everything else. So you're right. I guess I ran out to Vancouver. I guess I fell prey to it. I fell prey to that.
And I'm the same as you. My French is not good at all.
But he's
I know. Well,
bilingual.
I know. Mitch is completely bilingual, but I'm the same as you in terms of what you just said about all I need to do is say a few words of French, and I can tell that it's greatly appreciated and greatly respected.
Yeah, and there's another thing. I've said this. Actually, this I've tweeted in English because I wanted English people to read it, which is if you walk into any place of business in Quebec, let's call it a Starbucks for argument's sake, or Tim Hortons, or whoever your sponsor is, let's call it that. I think it's incumbent on us to ask for the coffee in French.
I agree.
Okay? Because everyone in Quebec knows how to ask for a coffee in French. Why go to the barista and say, I'll have a double frappuccino, when you could say, bonjour, est-ce que je peux avoir un double frappuccino?
Yeah.
It's respect.
Yeah.
And I don't accept the argument, well, it's my right to speak. It is your right to speak English. You're not talking to a surgeon about, your diagnosis, in which case you should use the language that you speak best. You're asking a barista for a coffee. Okay, so let's make the distinction between getting a diagnosis from a surgeon and ordering a coffee and showing the respect that we should show.
It's common courtesy.
Common courtesy, exactly.
and respect. And now, mind you, if I'm in Point Claire and I know that the clerk is English, I'll just say, give me a double-double.
Right,
but if I'm at the corner of, Rosemont and Papineau, then I'm going to ask pour un café pour emporter. Or as I once said many, many years ago, in Lévis, Quebec, on my way back to New Brunswick to visit my folks. Yeah, I didn't know. I knew no French at all at that point. And I thought to myself, okay, I want a coffee to go. I want a coffee for the road. Est-ce que je peux avoir un café pour la rue? Did they laugh?
Okay, but they knew what you meant.
They did know what I meant, and they appreciated it.
I'll just go one step further. If I'm in Italy, it's the same.
Yeah.
I don't speak Italian. Okay. If I'm in Germany, it's the same. Just something. Bitte, coffee.
Yeah.
Something. Just so you know, I'm struggling to, and then they'll speak to you probably in English.
Well, it's funny you mention that because in Italy, it's the same thing. If you're in a small village where a lot of people speak English in Rome, but if you go outside of Rome, good luck to you if you don't know how to say dove or grazie or you just need like a half a dozen words
or a phone
or a phone.
Yeah, there you go.
A phone. Yeah, exactly. We should take a break here, Ted, and thank two more of our sponsors.
We should. I want to talk about Jaguar Land Rover Laval because I got a message from Adrian McGrath, their marketing director. They have an exclusive deal with iCar up at Mirabel. iCar uses I think they use the old runways at Mirabel as like a racetrack.
Yeah.
So you can go up there with your high-performance car.
Yeah, I've been. It's
and,
spectacular.
Yeah, and away you go.
Spectacular.
They now have an off-road facility up there as well. And Jaguar Land Rover Laval has an exclusive deal with iCar for their off-road track well, it's there. It's just Jaguar Land Rover Laval's. You want to go on the off-road track? You better talk to Jaguar Land Rover Laval. And if you have a Land Rover, and specifically a Land Rover Defender, which is the first courtesy vehicle they loaned us for our first season. What a beautiful luxury tank that thing is. You can take your Defender up there and on the house, do the off-road track. And it looks and sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm sure that Jaguar Land Rover Laval will put together some pretty spectacular client events for their Land Rover owners at the iCar off-road track. I don't know if they've got anything up online yet. Well, by the time this podcast airs, they might. At landroverlaval.ca, I'm sure they'll have something up within a matter of weeks, if not days, about their new deal with iCar and the opportunity to take your Land Rover to the off-road track at the iCar facility up in Mirabel. Just another example of the customer service and the customer perks, the client perks offered by Jaguar Land Rover Laval. The quality of the product speaks for itself, Jaguars and Land Rovers. The difference is in the customer service and you'll be part of the family. You buy a vehicle from them, you're part of the family. They've made us part of the family. I feel like part of the family whenever we do. We went to the hockey game as their guests in the Loge at Place Belle to see the Laval Rocket. 3 generations of DQ Bellises there. There was the patriarch, Vilio. There was Nino and Renato, who run the joint now and have become good friends of ours, and their sons and the next upcoming generation, or I should say Nino's sons, Vilio and Sergio, and just good people selling a fantastic product. Jaguarlaval.ca, landroverlaval.ca.
And this season, we've welcomed a new sponsor called Accutech Electric. I got a call from Tom, who's a second-generation master electrician at the helm of this business, family-run business that his dad started 25 years ago. And you know how we feel about family-run businesses in this day and age of corporate takeovers. It's nice to be able to get the owner on the phone. And I really had a long conversation with them about their just their philosophy about business, how they treat their employees, how they treat their customers. And initially, I thought, I don't know if we can help you, Tom. Ted and I can't hammer a nail, and certainly we stay away from the fuse box. So I don't know if we're the right people. And he said, yeah, we would love for you to speak on our behalf. They specialize in residential, industrial, commercial. They can do high-end residential renovations. They can tackle the work in a new build. They do quality custom work. They can steer your renovations and steer you into hydro rebates. And of course, safety is their top priority, and so are their employees. They really are a wonderful company. Tom told me education and transparency is at the heart of everything they do. So if you run a business or you're renovating a home or you just need simple electric work, I highly recommend that you call Accutech Electric. You can find them online at accutech.ca. That's ACUTECH.ca. Our guest is Mitch Garber. We're talking all kinds of things, politics and whatever else.
I want to talk about sports ownership.
Well,
is that where you were going to go, Terry?
I was going to go there. I because I live where I live now. I live half an hour away from the border, and we're in Seattle like that. And
so let's go to a game then.
I would love to go to a game.
Okay, I really want to take you to a game.
Love to go to a game with you,
it's an amazing
Mitch.
experience, yeah.
Yeah, we drive down, and my wife Jess and I would love to go to a game with you, absolutely.
She seems lovely. I only know her through Instagram.
She is lovely. She's an angel. She loves him, for God's sake.
Yeah, she married me. Yeah, and she's a massive fan of the Climate Pledge Arena, which is the nicest building I've ever been in. Were you around when they were putting that together?
Of course.
Yeah. And did you have a say?
Well, what would you say if Jeff Bezos wants to sponsor the arena and make it part of his $10 billion climate pledge to be 10 years ahead of the Paris Climate
What
Accord?
is your stake, Mitch, before we get into it, and I don't mean monetarily or statistically, but what is your stake in the Seattle Kraken of the NHL?
Yeah, so I have a minority stake, and a really good position on the board of the team. The majority owner of the team is a gentleman named David Bonderman, who's a mentor of mine, founder of TPG, large private equity firm. His daughter, who's a 42-year-old MBA grad and business success on her own, Samantha Holloway, she's now running most of the operation. She's the chair
She got a boyfriend?
of the board. She has a husband. She has a really nice husband.
Okay. Never mind.
And so for me, the influence and exposure that I have is something I never could have dreamt of. The financial stake is, like I said, it's a minority stake, but the contribution and the ability to be involved in the decision-making of the team, every aspect of the decision-making of the team, in fact, other than who we draft, because Ron Francis doesn't really give a shit about who I think we should draft. But,
Do you offer an opinion anyway?
I used to.
You used to? Yeah, you got shut down, did you?
No, we joke around a lot, and yeah, such an amazing team of analysts and scouts. And if you just watch the War Room, you don't even want to say anything. I haven't watched a single player play. In the OHL. These guys are in Finland and Sweden watching kids play since they're 15 years old. So it's all about respect, and they do an incredible job. And I think that the team, I'm very proud of the team. The team has 4 really solid lines. No superstar, although we have the rookie of the year from last year, Matty Beniers. The team has the most diverse workforce, which we're very proud of. We've got the first woman assistant coach in the AHL. We went to the 7th game of the finals overtime and lost to Hershey. We've got the first NHL's female assistant GM, Alex Mandrecki. She's incredible. She was and is still one of the best analysts that in the league. So, and maybe it's a bit easier to have this diversity when you're a new team and not a 110-year-old team with a bunch of employees that have been there for 40 years. So it's a bit easier to create, an environment that's more representative of 2023 than of 1923.
Right.
And so, no, I'm very, very proud to be part of the organization.
Has your position resulted in the Seattle Kraken usurping the Montreal Canadiens as your favorite hockey team?
By a lot.
Isn't that something?
That's really
Isn't
something,
that something? Because we've been talking with other guests, hockey-related guests, about how Terry was saying, even like living in Vancouver and watching the Canucks all the time, he still bleeds red, white, and blue.
Yeah, I can't help it. The Canucks, I don't think are a very good organization, but that's a conversation for another day. When I moved to Calgary, when I got hired to go to a Calgary radio station, I thought, I got to become a Calgarian. I got to, I got to live like a Calgarian. I got to, represent the community. And I
just couldn't do it.
I just couldn't do it. But I didn't have a minority
stake. Yeah, it's a big difference between being intimately involved with the team on a daily basis.
And don't forget, I was alive for many of the 24 Stanley Cups.
Yes.
I grew up, with everyone, Lafleur, Robinson, Gainey. There's no player I could not recognize from the 70s just by the back of their sweater. That's the depth into which we were all religiously associated with the Canadians in the 70s and even in the early 80s. I'm a good friend of Jeff Molson. I do really respect the organization. I'm a great friend of Chantal Maccabee, of Kent Hughes. This organization is an organization that you can point to as the gold standard. There's no question about it. So, I'm being flippant, but the chances that we would meet them in the Stanley Cup final, which is the only place we could meet them, that's a real long shot. So I can still, I don't have to root against the Canadians. And we play them twice a year, once at home, once on the road. I will root against them, of course, in those 2 games.
Is there a moment where you're at the climate pledge and watching the team? And again, I'm trying to dig into your psyche. Is there a moment where you think to yourself, wow, I'm part owner of a National Hockey League club? I mean, as a Montreal kid, that's got to be, it's a long way from the Hampstead pool, Mitch.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I just think, being around the people, being around Ron Francis, being around the majority owners of the team, making new friends in Seattle who are, major business people and philanthropists in Seattle. It's a city that I never went to before the team. So that whole experience, at 59 years old, it is a pinch me experience, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And the arena, as you said, is
gosh.
a great source of pride.
We went to see Springsteen there, just seeing a concert. I mean, just the way the building was designed and the way it was thought out, the way you get into the building and out of the building. I said to my wife, I can't believe it. This took us 2 minutes to get into this building, and it's just so beautifully laid out. There were so many things, and I can't describe them all here, of course, but there's obviously so much thought that went into that building for the fan experience.
One thing about the team, and this is a credit to David Bonderman, David is very budget conscious, but he will spend whatever needs to be spent to make it great.
Yeah.
So we did blow through the budget on the Climate Pledge Arena, and it ended up costing about $1.2 billion. That's public. People know that.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth every penny.
I do too.
Because we are getting great concerts. The team has a really great fan base. And so, it is a great arena, and I appreciate that you love it too.
Yeah. And what's it like to partner with Macklemore?
I've only met him really once. But Todd Lewicki, our CEO, he felt that it was a really good idea for Seattle that we would bring in two minority partners, Marshawn Lynch, the former Seattle Seahawks football player, and Macklemore. And he was right. They add a dimension. The fans love them. There's a love affair in Seattle with Macklemore.
You have to tell Old Man Bird exactly
and
who Macklemore is.
Macklemore loves Seattle. Like he has a passion for that city the way you have a passion for Montreal. He has a passion for Seattle.
He's a massively successful artist.
Okay, I don't
recording
know.
artist.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Is he one of the hipper hoppers?
No, I wouldn't deign to describe his music. Oh my God,
I know the name.
Jess is going to kill me because she loves Macklemore.
I got introduced to the Foo Fighters. That I didn't know any of their music before. I mean, you guys obviously are.
Yeah.
I mean, you've run a rock and roll station for 50 years, so we're not gonna talk music because I'm a null in.
Are you a fan? Are you a music fan, Mitch?
Yeah, I'm a music fan, but like our mutual friend Mitch Melnick really makes fun of me because he is a music aficionado.
Big time.
I once went to a Milli Vanilli concert and told him about it. So that kind of fucked my credibility on music. But more recently, I did go to Springsteen at Climate Pledge. I went to Coldplay. I went to Paul McCartney. I went to the Eagles.
Wow.
I went to Dua Lipa. So I'm seeing a lot of really great music.
Do you look at the list for Climate Pledge and say, I think I'm going to go see? Like, were you and I were at Springsteen together? I guess.
Not together.
You went to McCartney there too, right?
Yeah, I saw McCartney.
Yeah.
He was great there too.
Yeah, McCartney's.
That's really good. He was really good
That's
there.
a special thing. It's hard for me not to cry at a McCartney show. I don't know what it is.
I just went to Sting. Last week I went to Sting.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
How's he? Still got it?
Yeah.
Sounds like 30 years ago, and he
that
looks
right?
like 30 years ago. I don't know what he's doing.
I
don't want to start Sting rumors because I don't know Sting, but
I think it's the tantric sex that's keeping him young.
He's made a deal with the devil for sure.
Yeah,
he doesn't age that guy.
No, he is not aged, and his voice hasn't aged. That's the thing, right? When you go see, and I don't think Bruce is. I don't call him Bruce because I don't know him, but I don't think his voice has changed either. I went to see him on Broadway as well, and that was amazing.
It's exhausting watching Springsteen. I don't know where he's 73.
Yeah,
and he goes from one like he doesn't even breathe between songs. He ends one song and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and he goes into the next one.
Yeah,
it's really it's a pretty powerful experience.
Love him.
How do you organize your schedule, Mitch, with so many files on the desk, so to speak? How far do you plan your week, your month, and how do you organize your day?
I'm planning about 3 months in advance.
Right.
I have a calendar.
Yeah.
And it's color coded. It's online. It's color coded, and so red is Mitch. Mitch must be not for you to see, but Mitch must be in town. So that's a red. Like this Terry and Ted podcast, it's red.
Okay.
Mitch must be in town.
Okay.
Which means if anyone asked me over the last 2 months, can you be on Friday the 20th of October? No, Mitch must be in Montreal.
Okay.
And then I have the same thing. Mitch must be out of town. That's a board meeting in New York. So I've got this color-coded calendar over the next 3 months, so I know when I have to be in town and when I'm away. Everything else is kind of open to, to my own discretion. And I have a similar problem to you, and I've known you for a long time. I also don't say no. What I've started to say no to is and this is not an exaggeration, let's call it between 5 and 10 people a week that I don't know, barely know, or are being introduced to me that want to have coffee. So I have to say no.
Yeah.
And let's do a Zoom. Text me what it is that you want to talk about. You have a business plan. Let me see it. I'll look at it. But to have a coffee, it would eat up all of my time.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a coffee.
No, it's not a coffee.
It's not a coffee.
Plus, you have to get to the coffee shop.
Yeah, it's not
you
a
got to
coffee.
find parking.
And I feel badly because people want to have the coffee.
Yeah.
But so that's the thing that I have to say no to, and everything else I basically say yes
Well,
to.
listen, you can't be all things to all people
No.
because then you end up being nothing to anybody. So,
How do you make decisions about, because you and your wife are philanthropists, doesn't even begin to describe it. You support so many things, not just in Montreal, but around the planet. How do you make that decision about who to support and what to give?
So we really both like the umbrella organizations, Centraide and CJA, the Combined Jewish Appeal, because they have under them like 300 organizations each that they feed or that they distribute the money to, and then we make decisions, sometimes together, sometimes not. Anne-Marie's on the board of the Weitzman Institute in Italy. Anne-Marie's on the board of the St. Mary's Hospital. I didn't make that decision. I'm on the board of the Montreal Children's Hospital. She didn't make that decision. I think Anne-Marie says yes where she adds value as a tax lawyer and a governance expert. And I say yes where I add value with my profile. So running the Montreal Children's Golf Tournament, I'm pretty good at that. Doing things where it's up to me to be out in public or soliciting people or making public appeals or public speeches, whether it's for money or just for awareness. So that's kind of the way we operate. I'm now on the cabinet for the Saint Justin fundraise. I never was involved in Saint Justin. I said yes for a different reason. I wanted to be, maybe I'm not, but I think I am. I wanted to be the first Anglophone that was working for both hospitals at the same time to dispel this myth that there's an English children's hospital and a French children's hospital. Just like the Jewish General Hospital, 20% of its patients are Jewish and 80% are not. It's not a Jewish hospital.
3 of my 4 kids were born there.
Right.
I
Not
was
Jewish.
I was born
exactly,
there.
Leave Ziegler delivering my son and going,
Jewish.
your wife's strong like ox. He's doing Borat while he's delivering my child. Do you know Cleve?
Yes, of course I do.
Such a great guy.
Yes.
I
Such
was
a
born
great
of the
guy.
Jewish General.
Were you?
Yeah,
I didn't know
I was.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Stop the conversation.
That's end the podcast.
Yeah. We'll go out on that.
Because those are big decisions, and obviously it's a big responsibility to decide. And it's funny that even there's a little bit of a not political thing, but you're trying to make a point because you're right. It's not an English kids hospital and a French kids hospital. There are 2 children's hospitals in Montreal.
Both great.
Both great hospitals.
There are 3, are there not? What about the Shriners? Is
Yes,
that not
the
Yeah,
Shriners,
the
which is
Shriners.
in
I
the
nearly
new
forgot.
Glen.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sorry about that. Agreed.
How do you choose where to holiday?
Well, I don't.
Okay.
She does. So it makes
That
it
makes
easier.
it easier, yeah.
Yeah, you just go. Yeah.
When the kids were younger, so this is part of. So you asked about money before.
Yeah.
So part of the advantage of having money is how you use it.
Yes.
So giving some of it away, of course, is one way. Being able to afford to take the kids to India.
Wow.
And to South Africa, and to Israel, and to Morocco.
Having
and
choices.
We've been to all these places before they were too old to be able to take off work.
Right.
They don't have kids yet. And so we were able to do all these things and travel to, I've been to 70 countries. My kids have been to like 60.
It's a great travel's a great education.
Advantage that we have. And Anne-Marie, she makes those decisions. Sometimes she asks me, sometimes not. She hasn't made a mistake yet, so no need for me to involve myself.
What was the car that you bought with that $12,000? What car did you buy?
Bought a Honda Accord from Honda Siggy.
Brand new?
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't brand new.
It was previously owned.
Then
Okay.
I bought, previously enjoyed.
Yes.
Then I bought a Honda Civic. Then I bought a Honda Prelude. Those were both new.
Yep. Excuse me.
Then I bought Cookie Lazarus's late wife, She wasn't late at the time. BMW convertible,
Nice.
red. And then I lose track. But
Yeah.
I did have as my screensaver when you say, oh, like, when did you first realize you made money? As my screensaver before I made money,
Yeah.
I did have a Porsche convertible on the screensaver, and I one day did buy one.
Good. I love that.
So I
sir.
need to know what you drive now.
Now I have only electric cars.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very woke. I know that we have to have that discussion.
That's
but
fine.
But you walk the walk.
Yeah.
I woke the woke.
Yeah. Yeah.
You-
Does Bugatti have an electric car
No,
yet?
they don't yet. No.
Would you get one if they did?
No.
No?
You know what? I went through that phase. I went through the phase, and I'm not ashamed of it. I had a Ferrari.
Yeah.
You do crazy shit when you
we
have a lot of
Well,
money.
if you're able to, why not? Yeah, why not?
We talked
Get
about
your
this.
toys.
We had our, not at that level, not at the Ferrari level, but we had our run.
Yeah,
with-
when
with
we
our
worked at Shome, part of
you
our
know.
contracts were you get to go to BMW Laval
Yeah,
and pick one as
yeah.
long as it's not as nice as Rob Braid's because he was the boss. Seriously. Terry
Yeah,
couldn't get one as nice as Rob, and I couldn't get one as nice as Terry because he was
I
the
look
morning
back
show
on
host.
as idiotic. I had a supplied 540,
Yeah.
and I went out and got a Z4. Like there was two BMWs in the driveway. Like I've only got one ass. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of dumb.
But it was fun.
But
It
it
was
was fun.
fun.
As you pointed out, it was a good time.
Yeah.
And it was the
Mitch,
time to do
yes.
it.
We need to know about baseball in Montreal because I
Right.
know that you're a big baseball fan, and I believe you've been active in trying to get Major League Baseball back to the city.
So there has been a group led by Stephen Bronfman, who you guys know, that was extremely active at trying to bring Major League Baseball back to Montreal. That was extremely active in hoping for a relocation of the Tampa Rays.
Right.
And then very hopeful of splitting the Tampa Rays, part of the season in Tampa, part of the season in Montreal. And all of those potential outcomes fell apart. Now there are rumors, and I say rumors because Major League Baseball has in its interest, when it talks about expansion, to not eliminate a city like Montreal. So why would you not say? Of course, Montreal is on the list of potential expansion cities. And as of today, I'm not involved, and I don't, and I see Stephen probably 3 times a week, and I don't know how active or not, because there's not really a discussion yet about expansion. But I do think that Stephen has this dream of bringing baseball back to Montreal. And if expansion comes back on the table, I don't think he'd walk away from the table. It'll be an expensive
Got to build a park.
property.
I was going to ask you, why do you think it failed, and what is it going to take for it to succeed?
I don't know why it failed. I think maybe the Players Association and the league did not love the idea of a split team. That maybe that would start some momentum of other teams wanting to have split teams. And I'm very for it. And I'm saying this in my own personal capacity, not as part of Stephen's group or anything. I think 162 games is too long for the next generation of sports fans who have 1,000 other distractions. And when we had no distractions, we went to the ballpark. That was our distraction. No phone, no video game, no Instagram, no nothing. Go to the ballpark. And it was affordable. Now they have 1,000 other things to do. It's quite expensive to go to a hockey game, even
Yep.
in our arena or in the Bell Center. So long-winded answer, I don't know. If I think what will it take? It will take for Major League Baseball to seriously consider Montreal, and then Montreal to have a serious group that can build a serious ballpark and pay the freight of what an expansion team would cost to buy.
What's your take? I've got 2 questions left about Quebec. What's your take on this ridiculous bullshit about the universities?
Well, that it's ridiculous. So it's a tough one because I think the fundamental problem, and I do speak to Mr. Legault quite frequently.
Do you?
I do.
Does he seek you out?
No.
No. Okay. But he takes your call.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Yes, he does. He does. So this is what I think, and he won't like this, but as an Anglophone, and like I said earlier, I don't like to be labeled as, but we are Anglophones. The 3 of us are Anglophones, okay? We generally do not vote for the CAQ, we do not vote for the PQ, and we do not vote for Quebec Solidaire, and the Liberal Party is on life support. So politicians care about votes, okay? We see it with Trump, we see it here, we see it everywhere. Our votes are basically irrelevant today because we're not going to be voting for the number 1, 2, or 3 party currently.
When you say our votes, you mean Anglophones?
Anglophone votes.
Okay.
Well, because this is an Anglophone thing, right? This is about Anglophone university. Now, in my view, the out-of-province students add tremendous value to the city of Montreal. Number one, there's 35,000 of them. They rent apartments. They buy food. They go to restaurants. They take taxis. They spend billions of dollars over time in our economy. That has not been counted when you're talking about the tuition. The tuition is only one piece of the equation. Number two is that McGill has produced 12 Nobel Prize winners. You can't ignore it. McGill has attracted some of the greatest minds in the world, and that is a great benefit to the province of Quebec. And when you step outside of Quebec, anywhere in the world, there are 3 brands from Quebec that matter. McGill, the Cirque du Soleil, and Céline Dion. Those are the only 3 things that everyone in the world, in every country they've heard of. People say, yeah, but what about Guy Lafleur? But what about this? No, in China, they don't know that. Okay, but in China, they know McGill. They have a lot of students coming to McGill.
Yeah.
Okay, they know Céline and they know the Cirque du Soleil. And we need to embrace those 3 things. And by the way, this new law affects Concordia, affects bishops. I talk a lot about McGill because it is a gold standard asset of the province of Quebec, not to be reserved only for Quebecers. It's to be shared with some of the greatest minds in our country and in foreign countries. And I don't see how you're going to achieve anything by doubling the tuition of out-of-province students. All you're going to do is 2 things. You're going to attract wealthy out-of-province students. So who needs more rich kids coming to your school when you could have the best kids coming to your school? And number 2, you're going to encourage more Francophones to go to McGill. But if you're trying to dissuade Francophones from English, why are you opening more spots for them to go to the English school? So I think that this policy has not been well thought out. The PQ won Jean Talon. There's been a lot of noise.
Yeah.
They're rising in the polls. What do we do? And I don't want to make it seem, to Mr. Legault that he's, in a panic and acting, but it just seems like it's not well thought out. And I've signed a letter this week with a lot of other prominent Montrealers, many of them doctors, professors, hospital administrators, university administrators, well-known business people, artists. That is a very well-written letter. I didn't write it. I just signed it. That will be sent to Mr. Legault, and it outlines many of the reasons why this is bad policy, and to please ask him to review and consider reconsidering this particular policy.
Do you think there's a chance of that?
Politicians are very remiss to backtrack. It's too bad because in business, I can count on 10 hands the number of bad decisions that I've made and had to reverse course on. Sometimes it results in having to fire people that you hired in good faith, they thinking and you thinking they'd be there for a long time, but it didn't work out, or a project that just didn't work out, and you had to stop it, and you had to admit, hey, this is me. I made this mistake. I miscalculated. I don't think politicians like to say the words, I miscalculated. I should reconsider. We should reconsider. So I do think there's a chance. But history shows me that politicians are not so good at backtracking.
I'm going to ask you one more question about Quebec before you go. You've been very generous with your time, Mitch. We just have to say thank you to our friends at Merson and our friends at Matelas Bonheur. I took Ted to Matelas Bonheur this week, and he went for a little lie down and got himself a little new duvet.
You can actually go for a test nap at Matelas Bonheur.
Under the duvet?
Yes. Yeah. I needed a new duvet.
You even got tucked in?
Yes.
Wow.
Kevin, who runs the place, said to me, okay, lie down on that bed. And he put the duvet over top of me, and it was like a test nap. Wow. I actually got to take the duvet out for a demonstration lie down,
Yep.
and it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and you were sold.
I was.
You were sold,
Yeah.
and you bought it that day. This is another story of a family that, for some reason or another, are passionate about sleep and helping people get a better
I'm
night's sleep.
passionate about sleep, too.
Yep, there you go.
People who get up in the middle of the night generally become passionate about sleep over time. I love me a good nap.
They started in that small store on Gwen Boulevard in Saint-Geneviève. and with a pickup truck, delivered mattresses at night while they were doing other things, and grew this business into a business that I love. They deal with mostly Canadian suppliers. They try and do all their sourcing with Quebec suppliers. They're based in Montreal. They have 17 stores in and around the greater Montreal area. And of course, you can go online at matelasbonheur.ca. And it's a different kind of shopping experience. Ted, you will attest to the fact that the stores are beautiful, the people are nice, and it's just a different way to shop for a mattress or bedding.
Yeah, it's customer service. Again, all of our sponsors, family-owned businesses who excel at customer service, like the Mersons.
Yes,
absolutely. We should say, before I get to the Mersons, matelasbonheur.com.
.ca.
Yes,
That's what I meant to say.
I was testing you. I was making sure you knew that.
I passed.
Yeah. The Mersons, meanwhile, are having to reconsider their vacation plans because I got rid of my pre-owned German luxury sedan that was keeping them in caviar. Because every week something went wrong with that piece of shit. What did I call it? The Bavarian money pit. Yeah. It was good news for the Mersons, but bad news for me. So I got a more modest German sedan that's a pre-owned German sedan that's not giving me the trouble that piece of junk did. But of course, I still got to do my winter tires, as we all do, because that's the law here in Quebec, and that's what the Mersons specialize in. They specialize in tires, but they've also got a full assortment of mechanical bays in the back so that you can do your fall maintenance, which is extremely important. Heading into the wintertime, you want to make sure that your car is in good working order. The Mersons will do that for you as well. And if you have an issue, and this goes back to what Mark Merson said to you many years ago, Ter, when you started doing commercials for them, like, Mark, what talking points do you want? What's important to you in the business? Tell them that the owner is always at the counter, and he or she is. You will always find one of the owners at the counter at Merson. Chances are you're not going to run into any issues, but if you do, you don't have to send a letter to corporate.
Right.
Because they're right there. The owner's right there.
Montreal-based business looking after Montrealers. We love those guys.
MersonAuto.com, or drop by and see them on Saint-Jacques, west of Cavendish.
Mitch, you talked about Montreal, and it's where we grew up. It's the streets that we know, the restaurants we're familiar with. It's as big a pain in the ass as it became to me. One of the things that I've learned, having moved to British Columbia, is I realize Quebec is where I'm from. It's part of who I am. Is it ever going to change? Do you ever think this pull, the tug of the nationalism and the language, and is that always going to be part of our DNA? My first election, I was eligible to vote in 1976. And Christ, la plus ça change. We talk about the same stuff for years and years and years. And when me and my wife heard about the new language bill, my wife said to me, God, are they doing this again? And they are. And now there's the university thing. Anyway, my question to you is, do you have hope that someday we won't talk about this? Or is it in the DNA?
It's in the DNA.
It is. Shit.
You can love Quebec and completely disagree with Bill 21, which was a hijab law. You can call it what you want. The end result might be a laïcité law. It was a hijab law. And I'm against a hijab law, especially when it was originally referred to essentially as that, the way that Trump referred to the Muslim travel ban. He had to change the name a few times, but he got the travel ban in the end. And I think there's the new focus is on, in French, what they say, le déclin de la langue française. So the decline of French. My view is this. With the onset of Netflix and TikTok and Instagram and all the streaming, there's for sure more English being consumed by everybody in the world, including Quebecers. Do I think that French is on the decline? Not as much as English is just much more present in content. So you can love Quebec and fight the Bill 21 and fight parts of the Bill 96 and fight the university law. But then when you step outside the fighting, it's what you and Ted and I have been talking about. It's just really a bunch of down-to-earth people with a very high quality of life. And it's a place you could be proud to bring your children up in despite the conflict. Is it better to be in the States where there's a school shooting every day? Is it better to be, I can name you, is it better to be in France where there are riots every day with 20,000, 30,000 people killing policemen and murdering professors? You know, this is a really, really good place. And if you don't mind, I want to say one thing. You said something earlier about, you didn't feel comfortable here. I think, and we're all in the same basic age bracket, I'm 59, you're 65, basically, there are chapters, okay, in our lives and in Quebec life. You guys are a massive part of one of the most important chapters, okay? You, Ted Bird, Ted Blackman, Balkan, Melnick, Mitsumi. We can go through the McGowan, Hoagland, Rand, Schnurmacher. We can go through 20 or 30 names that they helped create what we're living in today, even if we've diluted it. Sadly, it's been diluted. Radio has become less important. Local radio, sadly, has become less present. But I believe that you are hugely appreciated. And outside of the noise, the French media, because I've talked about you many times to the French media and French sports, they all know you. They all love you. They all listen to Chaume.
Yeah.
They knew George Balkan. They knew Ted Blackman. They respected you. They're not part of the noise. They're part of the fabric that you guys helped create. And I'm a big fan, so I wanted to say it.
Thank you.
Oh, God love you. Thank you,
Mark,
Mitch.
Mark Cassavy in La Presse wrote a column that put a lump in my throat when I retired. And there was I had a huge, and this is what drove me nuts. I had a huge sense of pride in the fact, and largely because I was at Chaume, and Chaume one time was a bilingual station that had the respect of, I became friends with Serge Fiori, and that was amazing to me. And when I left, there was a column in Le Devoir, there was a column in the Journal, there was a piece in La Presse, and the first time La Presse did a feature on me, it was in Saturday's paper with a big picture of me that I have in a frame at home, because I take great pride in the fact that I kind of reached across the divide. And when it happened the other night at Place Belle, a kid, he was, I guess, in his 30s, Felix. I just want to thank you for everything.
Hey, Terry DeMonte.
Yeah, and it's a great source of pride to me. And like I said, now that Jess and I are in British Columbia, when we left here, we were so mired in the anger about the things that bothered us. Yeah. We forgot about the things we love.
Also, look, the way certain radio stations have treated certain long-time loyal contributors to this society has been extremely unfair. Mm-hmm. And so we call it out.
Yep.
And I'm happy to call it out. But I do think that you guys, doing all these podcasts, and I'm going to be retweeting and
God love you.
Reposting and whatever it is. Thank you for having me.
I can't tell you how thrilled we were to have you. I said to Ted this morning, we were talking about you before you got here, and I said, this guy's the most accomplished guy we've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, you guys better get to work.
And by the way, I'm going to hold you to it because I don't
we're
care.
going to a game together.
I don't care what game. Jess and I would love to accompany you to the Climate Pledge.
100%, it's happening.
Merci beaucoup, Mitch.
Merci à vous.
Standing by, the Terry and Ted podcast has been brought to you by the UPS Store Canada. The UPS Store near you is locally owned and operated by a member of your small business community.